Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. What a start. What a start. How are we doing, guys? We're back again. We just did that for effect. That was all part of the plan. That was all part of the plan. We all know it. How are we doing, guys? It's the transfer talk with the main man, Phil Miles himself. He's put together a fantastic piece here on left wingers and left-sided centre backs. So we're going to go through that, guys. Guys, hopefully the internet is okay on this one. I'm getting the emergency signals again off the StreamYard. Hopefully it's okay. I'm just running fine. But Phil, first of all, mate, how are things?
Oh, good. Thank you, Oscar. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. Bit gutted that we've got an international break among
Yeah.
us because it's been a while since we've gone into an international break off the back of a win. So it's a long time now till the next game. But let's get into this. Obviously, bit of transfer talk. Obviously, been a few suggestions straight away. And yeah, without any further ado, if you're happy to, mate, we'll have a little look at your report on the left wingers, if that's okay, mate.
Yes.
If anyone is new to this, these are just suggestions. These aren't what we're saying is going to happen. We don't have any in the know sources. Well, I don't. Phil might, to be fair. We don't have any in the know sources, so we're just suggesting players that Victor also could be looking at based on the fixed level of criteria, which you're going to see in a second, which Phil has selected for the left winger. So let's just go to the diagram first of all, mate. So I'm just going to show us what we're looking at now. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. Okay, so you've listed out the wingers here. First of all, mate, explain to us the dribble percentage and progression at the top. Obviously, in terms of what that means to the listeners there.
Yes, absolutely. So what I've done on, I don't know if everyone that's watching has already watched, obviously, the last few videos that we've been doing on the transfer shows, and I've just tried to sort of narrow down a criteria of what I think Victor Orta and Marcelo Bielsa together are looking for as to what suits the Bielsa system in every different position. So for obvious reasons, like with centre backs, you wouldn't want to put shooting stats on there. It doesn't really make a difference. But I've compared the stats of similar players in Europe's top 5 leagues. So obviously I know people have a lot of suggestions, and obviously we've put Ryan Kent on the cover of this, but he's not in Europe's top 5 leagues, so I haven't got any stats for him. But I think with Ryan Kent, it's a case of we don't really need the stats on him. We all know who he is. We've all seen him play. We know plenty about him, and we know that over the last few transfer windows, Leeds have made offers and inquiries about him. So we know that he is on a list of the kind of the kind of people that Bielsa and Orta are both looking at. Whether we were to go out and get any of these names, it's not me saying 100% that's what's going to happen. It's just me saying on the criteria that realistically I expect Leeds to be looking at someone between the ages of 21 and 29 years old, playing high quality regular senior football in any of Europe's top 5 leagues. And realistically, for them to have any chance of being even looked at by us, they have to be sort of ticking a few different boxes. So we're looking at the dribble percentage, the success of their dribbles, the progression of their dribbles. We're looking at, more importantly, like obviously we're comparing here to Jack Harrison, who is obviously, we all, I think, agree that he's Leeds' most effective presser. So
that's why that's so important, isn't it, though? The pressing stats. I mean, there is sexier stats to use than pressing in that lot, but it's so important for the wingers in this team to be able to press, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. So I think, honestly, the two that are most important would be the right-hand side column, which are the pressing stats and the shot-creating actions. So that's basically not just assist, but any sort of assist to a shot, whether that's on target, off target, as long as you're creating those chances, they're the kind of things that I think we'd be looking at. The values come from Transfer Market. That's just what is on there. That's not something I've made up. It's just something I've taken from there. I don't think we'd have to bid £8 million for Jack Harrison. We know it's going to be £11 million, and we believe that deal's getting done. A lot of these people, I imagine, would be... 1 minute, I'm just reading that.
He said Nicholas is saying you're good, basically, mate. He's saying you're very, very good, which I can definitely agree with.
I'll take that. I'll take it. The transfer values come from Transfer Market. A lot of the things on here, like I've put in red, I would set sort of a limit of about 20 to 25 million quid for a winger. I can't see us going and spending stupid money on it because realistically, I know Victor Orta and Bielsa between them, they love a good winger when we already have plenty. But we already have Rafinha. We already have Jack Harrison. I'm fairly confident neither of those two will be leaving this summer. I think the Harrison deal will be done. There are rumours that Leeds are willing to listen to offers for Helder Costa. If that was to happen, I imagine we'd replace him. If that happens, we know how Bielsa loves to have someone that's versatile, can play on both wings. We've seen that with Rafinha and Harrison in particular lately. They've both been swapping flanks. Costa not to the same effect, I don't think. Dan James is on this list.
He is. He's getting a lot of mention in the comments, which I find interesting, to be fair. It's an interesting one, isn't it, Dan James? But we'll go on to him later.
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
I personally found it very fun doing the right and left wing slots, and Dan James, based on the criteria that we've been looking at, is actually the most unsuitable player I've looked at in any position. He doesn't match anything that we've been going up against. I know that goes off this season's stats, not the stats that he put together when he was at Swansea. So, we've looked at him in the past, so that would suggest that Bielsa and Orta have previously thought that he was suitable for us. But based on the way he's played in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team, that would prove to not be the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I think, obviously, the big thing with Jan James would be is as you said before, the numbers are based on this season. He's just not played enough to get a big enough sample size to form like a solid opinion on him. But as Just Joe says, as JJ says, let's think. I mean, Phil, you were battering Joe last time you were on about the Fulham and Leeds players, but you got a bit of praise there, mate. You got a bit of praise. The new Orta, Phil Orta.
Who's this Just Joe football show? Have you heard of it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who this Just Joe is, but
well, thank you for watching, Just Joe. Much appreciated. Nice to have you along.
Let's go into some of the players then. Yeah. Obviously, Florian Thauvin is someone who has worked under Bielsa before, which is very much worth mentioning. I think in terms of his raw stats, in terms of dribbling and progression, he's definitely up there. Obviously, 61.5% dribble success, progressed the ball a very large distance compared to some of the other players on there. Yeah. And interestingly, I think his success rate in the press isn't particularly great. Having said that, though, it just seems to me Thauvin and those stats pretty much exactly back this up, that very flashy on the ball, can make things happen, but not the hardest worker. Would that be a fair assessment, that, Phil?
You never know, because as much as, all of the work that I've done on these shows has been based around statistics, I'm always the first to say, no, Lookman's not on the list. I'm always the first to say statistics aren't the be-all and end-all. They're not the perfect. They're a guideline. They're a measure of what somebody does. But pressing is something that Marcelo Bielsa insists on. I'm not 1,000,000% sure whether Marseille press that intensely. They've just got a new manager, haven't they? Who just happens to be the same person that took over from Bielsa with Chile. Jorge
Sampaoli.
So I imagine his pressing stats are about to improve slightly.
You get that feeling.
So it's one of them.
Which is interesting and worth mentioning. He was at Newcastle as well for a period.
Yeah. It didn't go great for him, though, did it? At Newcastle.
We won't mention that, to be fair, but I just did. I just mentioned it, but it wasn't successful of moves, should we say?
No. Like I said a minute ago, I honestly think that, it's great to have Green in the column on the left, which means that you've got better stats than Harrison when it comes to dribbling and progression. But I think we'd be much more intrigued to see somebody that has better stats than Harrison when it comes to the pressing side and when it comes to the shot creating actions. No, there's no 0.5s on this show, don't worry.
I mean, you look at Harris's numbers there, it is just it just screams the perfect Bielsa winger, like high dribble success, progressive, creates a lot, in terms of on that list, other than Domenico Berardi, he does create the most in terms of shot creating actions. In fact, only Berardi's ahead of him in terms of the press. And, it's interesting from that point of view.
I must say as well,
Berardi is someone who's been around for quite a while now in terms of an Italian international, and he's a top-level player. And you look at his value there, top-level player. That kind of says to me, and I think the numbers say it themselves, really, that there's not really anyone there for the value of Jack Harrison, which is supposedly, I know it says 8 million there, but we've been quoted as 11 million.
Yeah.
Realistically, Phil, is it fair to say we're simply not going to get anyone that close to Harrison for his fee as low as 11 million?
No, but at the same time, I do expect with if Costa is to go, Harrison's deal is going to be completely separate to any business we do with wingers. I think this summer, if wingers are on the menu, it's going to be Jack Harrison +1. Jack Harrison is happening one way or another. Like I
agree with that. I agree with that. I'm just saying in terms of if Jack Harrison is number one, could you justify, for example, paying more money for his backup option, if that makes sense? Or is that
it depends.
Kind of a way of looking at it, perhaps?
I think it depends on what you're going to bring in. If you're going to bring in someone as a backup, then no. But if you're going to bring someone in who isn't necessarily backup, who is also going to challenge Harrison for a place, and perhaps we've seen a hell of a lot of Harrison over the last 3 seasons. He's played virtually every game under Bielsa, but I'm a massive fan of Jack Harrison. Some people aren't. And if there was someone that could come in and be, say, Rafinha level, then you would have to say that if you've got a Rafinha on the right and a Rafinha carbon copy on the left, then it would be difficult for Harrison to get in, but he'd still be a fantastic option to bring off the bench.
Okay. So you don't necessarily see Jack Harrison as the undisputed number one choice at left wing if we did bring in another option?
No. To be honest, I think even in the last month or two, it's not been a case of Jack Harrison being the undisputed first choice on the left wing, because we've seen plenty of Helder Costa lately. I don't think Bielsa's 100% decided on one over the other. I think Rafinha is first choice, no matter what, on either wing. But Costa is getting game time, and he's actually been starting ahead of him at times. Somerville is perfect for the future.
What a player! What a player!
He could step up into the first team. Him and Joffrey Gelhardt, Sam Greenwood. I think hopefully towards the end of the season, we might start seeing these people on the bench. We might start seeing them maybe getting a debut. It's a shame we're not still in a cup, to be honest, because if we would have still been in one of the cups, you'd imagine maybe they would have got a run out there, but we all know what happened with the cups. Maybe next season.
Let's not mention the fact we went out to 2 League One teams, which is a League One and League Two team, in fact. But guys, keep smashing that like button as well. We'd massively appreciate it, guys. Keep smashing that like button and subscribe if you haven't done already. Is there any other players you want to mention from that top of the list? There's a couple of other players I've seen before who I'm interested that you've picked out there, mate. But is anyone you want to pick out in that list?
Yes, sir. I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead and go for my top 5 early doors, but
no. Keep your cards close to your chest. Yeah. Don't commit yet. Don't commit yet on that.
As usual, I have ranked in terms of suitability, but I've also then obviously picked out who I would like and for different reasons. Like I think there's people that come in the top 5 based on their suitability that I just think aren't realistic, whether that be for money reasons, whether that be for as daft as it sounds, we've got the new Brexit laws, which are going to make a deal for example, Ezekiel Barco's a bit further down the list and he's from the MLS. So for example, getting a player like that at this moment in time, I think would be a really hard deal to do. It's so complicated the way that it's got to work now. And I think we're lucky with some of the people we are looking at, like with Rodrigo de Paul. I know it's a different position. He's been playing in the top division in Italy for so long now, and he's played for his country that he ticks these boxes. But if you've got somebody that hasn't played for their national team or hasn't played in one of Europe's top 5 leagues for a certain number of years, you're going to really struggle to get them through on the new Brexit rules.
That's something worth mentioning. I think it's worth mentioning this will be the first proper window in terms of full summer window after Brexit. So it's going to be interesting if it does have an impact. Obviously, you've got the COVID situations to consider as well. So in terms of prices, it's going to be very interesting. But, I mean, have you got any take on Stefan Ortega at all, mate?
Obviously, we're not doing goalkeepers. I think we did goalkeepers last week, but I can't say that I looked at him, to be honest. I can have a look at him, and every time we do these shows, I do take a little bit of a note down of any position that people want me to look at, any players people want me to look at, and then I'll add them to the database, and we'll come back to it at the end of the series.
We will. And I've seen you mention it for Thiago Almeida as well from Duncan.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to look at him.
I can talk to you about him all day. I started signing him on FIFA 2 years ago. Absolutely love him. If you watch videos of him on YouTube, he's very exciting. But I think the the link there is only because Bielsa's Argentinian. I don't see it happening. I thought if it was going to happen, it would have been last summer. And again, now that the Brexit rules are here, I just think it's really going to be very difficult to get a deal like that done.
Well, there's two players I want to mention on that list. Two that I'm a big fan of. Jens Petter Hauge as well from AC Milan. Obviously, he's been the star of AC Milan's Europa League campaign. I don't watch loads of Serie A, but again, I believe he's been doing really well on the left wing. Interesting, he's a right-footed left winger, so it changes the dynamic a little bit. I think one thing that's worth mentioning with Bielsa is that in terms of wingers, he doesn't seem to be a massive fan of inverted wingers. I know Rafinha might be a slightly different example, but in general, he does prefer wingers that kind of more chalk on your boots kind of wingers who kind of stick to the touchline in that kind of sense. I think that's probably fair to say. But yeah, I mean, very interesting player. Obviously, in terms of the raw numbers there, I think, okay, the shot creating actions might be a little bit lower, but certainly in terms of goal threat, it's probably the most obvious goal threat along with Harvey Barnes on the list. But I think Barnes isn't going to happen because obviously at Leicester. But Hauge, for example, in terms of goal return and that lot, in terms of overall end product, is absolutely fantastic. He's definitely worth a mention. And I mean, I can't pronounce his first name. I got a lie, but Kubo at Getafe last season at Mallorca, he was the star. He was the star. That kind of team. Obviously, Real Madrid have loaned him out a couple of times. But yeah, against Barcelona, I remember seeing him in that game. He was just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you had Busquets, Piqué. He was just honestly throughout the game skipping past them and just making them look like average players in that kind of sense. So very interesting player as well. Obviously, in terms of, I mean, you look in terms of like his progression, 200, it's compared to the rest of the other players, and that lot is absolutely ridiculous in terms of progression, in terms of dribble success. Even his pressing is good. He ticks a lot of boxes as well, and obviously that experience in the Liga. But again, for me, he seems more of a Pablo kind of winger in terms of he's not really got that raw pace. He's more of a
tricky.
Into his feet and that lot, a bit more of a playmaker in that kind of sense.
Yeah, he's a ball carrier. Yeah, he's a ball carrier. He's actually one of the very few players.
For example, would that be obviously much better than Saeed?
Maybe.
That kind of bolder player.
Yeah. No, he's actually one of the very few players on this list I've actually seen in the flesh. I went to the Barcelona-Mallorca game where they won 5-2. Messi got his Ballon d'Or before the game, scored a hat-trick.
We're talking about the same game. We're talking about the same game.
Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. But he was one of the only players from Mallorca that stood out that night. And obviously, I'd actually seen a little bit of him before. He obviously made the controversial switch from La Masia to Castilla. And he's been loaned out while he's been at Real Madrid. But if you see some of the actual video footage of him playing for Castilla on YouTube, like honestly, I know you get like teenage sensations and you see videos of them and you think, it's going to be different when they get in the first team. But he does look very, very exciting. And without jumping forward too far and ruining the conclusion, players like himself and Hauge that you were just talking about, the younger players, they're playing for big clubs. When I know it says on here that he's at Getafe, he's not at Getafe, he's a Real Madrid player, and Hauge's at AC Milan. Buying these players, they are going to cost a lot, but there's no reason why we couldn't do what we've done with Harrison. We could get them on loan, and loan deals used to be a case of you have them for 6 months or 12 months, and that's it. But now we've seen with Jack Harrison, we've had him on loan for 3 years, and the fact they're probably they've been seemingly able to do business with us permanently for quite a while now, but we've had him on loan for 3 years. We're going to take him permanently. There's no reason why we couldn't take one of these two players on loan and with a view to a permanent deal if that was something that the parent clubs would be interested in doing.
Absolutely. But big thanks to Robert Swift for a lovely donation. Thank you very much for that, mate. If Leeds did sell Costa, do you think the club will have to take a hit? I mean, in terms of finances. I can't see us getting money back for him. Would they look at keeping him? I mean, what's your take on that, Phil? I think we'd struggle to get the 16 million we paid for Costa. Yeah. I don't see I see it as a loan, to be honest. I don't see Costa leaving full time. To be honest, I think it'd have to be a loan initially to some like a Norwich, for example. I don't know. What would you see it as, mate?
I tend to agree on the side that we would struggle to get 16 million quid back for him right now if we were to sell him. Do I think the club care about taking a bit of a hit? I don't think they do. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we'd sell him for £2, but if someone was to offer you the upside of £10 million, would you take a £6 million loss, bearing in mind the amount of money we're making from being in the Premier League alone? Wouldn't surprise me. He's still relatively young. We know that he could do it at maybe a higher end championship level. To be fair, there's an argument to be made that he can do it in the Premier League. He's not been terrible permanently this season. He had a bit of a sticky patch, and he had a good patch at the start of the season, went down and dipped a bit, and then recently he seems to have picked up a little bit again. So if a bid comes in for him and it's a bid that the club are willing to accept, I don't think that the club would be holding out for bang on 16 million. I think they would take a hit, yeah.
I think it'd be interesting. I don't personally see him going this season. I don't see him going in the summer. I think he is playing too much to suggest that he's going to leave. I think it's more likely Poveda possibly maybe goes out on loan next season. I think that's more likely than Costa leaving the club, but that's just my opinion on that. I just don't see him leaving at all.
It depends if they really want to do business for another winger, I think, doesn't it? Yeah. If they're not, if Bielsa's happy with the wingers he's got, then I think they'll leave it be. But if he's desperately found somebody that he really wants,
we all know this.
They all do, mate.
Pretty much without fail has signed a winger.
Yeah, especially if they're left-footed as well. That just sort of ticks everything they want. We don't need a left back. It's fine.
We need a right-footed winger in the squad just for balance.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't think they care that much about balance. I think if they could have left footers in every position, they probably would.
It's fair to say. No, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. But guys, keep smashing that like button. We almost saw the 150 of you watching us live, which is fantastic. Let's just go down the list a little bit. Let's work our way down the list a little bit further. Bear with me 1 second, guys. Just go down. So obviously we've got 1 second. So we've got Dan James on there. As you can see, in terms of numbers, in terms of the shot creating actions, well down, aren't they? The shot creating actions. Obviously, Nicolo Zaniolo at Roma. Some more ambitious ones on there. I think Bukayo Saka and Pedri. Mate, if we got Pedri, I'd be absolutely staggered. But it's fair to put him on there. I mean, let's live the dream. Mate.
I think a lot of it's about context as well. Like, I haven't put Bukayo Saka on there because I think that Leeds are going to go for him or that we could afford him. It's simply, if you were to go on FBref and have a look at Jack Harrison, Rafinha and Helder Costa and look for the 6 most comparable players for all 3, that's where most of the people on this list have come from. Other than that, it's sort of a little bit of people I know we've looked at before, people that I know we've been interested in and held talks with before. Damari Gray, as far as I was aware, we made an approach for him over the summer and that didn't go as far as it could have done. And now obviously he's in Germany, but I actually thought, maybe not this season, but last season, I thought he would have been a really good signing for us. And obviously we ended up getting Helder Costa in the Championship instead. But a player like Damari Gray, still young, could do a job.
Yeah. No, it's very true. 24. I mean, it feels like he's been around for a long time, but I mean, Dan James is an interesting one. I think the thing about Dan James, he can play on both sides. He's got that pace. I still think there's a real player there in Dan James. I really do think there's a player there. I think he's showing glimpses for that team over the Pennines. I think against us earlier in the season in that 6-2 game, he was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. He was really good in that game. Caused all sorts of problems on that side of the pitch. So, I mean, look, it's an interesting one, isn't it, in terms of Dan James? I mean, we know Walter wanted him. We know that because we've seen it on the documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, could you ever see that happening again? Could you ever see Dan James feasibly turning up on loan?
I don't know, mate. I'm more inclined to say I don't want to see it.
We know Orta likes him, and Orta normally does stick. It does normally push again for signing.
Yeah.
So we get the Paul as an example. Apparently, we're going to push again on that one. I know it's a completely different level to Dan James, but also doesn't give up easily. When he finds a target, he normally gets it. He does normally get it. I mean, do you think maybe the players that have come in over the years since then, Costa, Rafinha, Harrison on a permanent? Well, this summer will be on a permanent. I mean,
yeah.
What's your gut instinct telling you? Could you see Dan James making that move? I'm not saying do you want it to happen. I'm not too sure if I would want it to happen because
I don't think he'd want it to happen.
Things like guaranteed game time and all this lot. I'm perfectly happy with Rafinha and Harrison as a starting wingers, but when you start doing business with clubs like Man United, they'll be demanding the minimum minutes they can play the season, all sorts of fines if they don't.
Yeah,
you lose a lot of power when you make loan signings like that.
Yeah, for me, once you've had what we saw in the documentary with him taking pictures with a Leeds United shirt and then 5 minutes later signing for Man United and saying he's always wanted to play for the club, it's one of them where I'm just like, I don't even want you, mate. And I get the feeling now that I don't think he'd want to come to Leeds. I really don't. I think would he see it as a sideways step? Would he think that he can get into that team?
James, at the end of the day, this isn't Erling Haaland or Jadon Sancho. It's Dan James. I mean, could he afford to be looking at turning his nose up at us? Could he afford to do that?
Well, realistically, the amount of money he's probably on at Man United, he's only 23.
Can he afford to, pass up an opportunity to play regular football? I'm not disagreeing with you. So I'm just putting the argument there and playing devil's advocate a little bit.
I think he might think what he's playing at the moment is regular football, to be honest. He's not playing less than 10 games. He is appearing in the Cups. He is appearing in Europe. And he is playing a bit of a part in the league.
But he's been there 2 years now. Surely he needs more regular football.
I personally don't care whether he gets more regular football, to be honest. But no, I can see your point. But I'm
not saying I really want Dan James to be playing football. I'm just saying that from his point of view, from his maybe agent's point of view, not his agent won't care, but from his own personal development as a footballer, surely now at 23, he's shown that potential early doors. Again, he's kind of had 2 years of not being in the team every single week. It's probably not going to change much if Jadon Sancho turns up there. You've got the likes of Diallo coming through, etc., etc. I honestly don't think he'd turn us down if he had the chance to play regular football in the Premier League. I mean, maybe that's naive of me, but I'm not saying I want him to come necessarily. I'm just saying I think if we put that offer in, if Orta was still keen, I do think Dan James would make the move, to be honest.
Perhaps he would, but I think from a Leeds United standpoint that he's not the be-all and end-all. I think there's I've narrowed down people on this list that are far more suitable to us with the way we play than he is. And like we said before with stats, it's a case of he might not being asked to be doing these things and he might not being given the opportunity to do these things. But I think there's other people that are younger, have a better potential long-term impact for us, and at the same time maybe more affordable wage-wise, transfer fee-wise. I think for me there's more than just one or two reasons as to why I think Leeds United wouldn't go back in for Dan James.
What's your take on this? I'd personally go McNeil over Dan James. I really like Dwight McNeil. Yeah.
I think without Dwight McNeil, I'd really struggle to see how Burnley were to stay up in this division. So I really don't think they're going to be interested in selling. Otherwise, he would have gone a while ago. But there's been links with Tottenham for a couple of years, haven't there? So he's a fantastic player. And he is left-sided. He would be very, very, very good in our Leeds team. I don't think he's obviously being at Burnley. I don't think he's going to be used to playing the Bielsa way because Sean Dyche is a tiny bit different. But
only a bit, only a tiny bit, mate.
I'm sure they believe very similar things, though. But no, Dwight McNeil is a fantastic player, and I think more towards the shot-creating action side and goal involvements, he'd be really good for us. But I think it'd take him a little while to adapt to Bielsa's ways after being with Sean Dyche for so long.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Completely different styles of play. I mean, he's probably not used to playing in the opposition's half very often, to be fair. He's more of a... But I think Michael Elise is worth a mention. I mean, in terms of getting numbers on Elise, playing for Reading, it's hard to get the numbers on him. But
I don't see Elise as a winger.
It's an interesting one. Again, he's a bit more in
I see
the
him as a 10.
Kubo kind of mould in terms of he's a ball to feet player, carries the ball, a bit more central for me. I don't, would you say number 10?
Well, yeah. Well, when we did the Rodrigo de Paul bit, we actually, well, I don't know if we did it on the show, but on the actual article that I've done on it, he's on that article. But obviously, because he's in the Championship, you can't get the same stats measured against as we have with these players. But I think everybody's probably heard the links between us and Michael Olise for the last 6 to 9 months. To be honest, I think he's a very good player. I think we would be pushed to get him for under 10 million quid. I know that's a lot for a Championship player, but I think they'd hold out for well over 10 million quid. He's a fantastic player.
I think they could. They're a competitive Championship team now as well in the playoffs, I believe. Todd Cantwell's an interesting one. I'm not personally keen on Todd Cantwell. I don't think.
If you go in Norwich, go Buendia, to be honest. Buendia's a player.
There's more end products at Buendia. I think there's definitely more end product to Buendia. But let's just go to. Are you happy to go to your final 5, mate, on this one?
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Have a little look at the final 5 then. Okay. Obviously, in fact, let's just mention actually your notable mentions there. Obviously, again, I always get his name wrong, but Splizlat. I can't do it. I do love him as a player, but I still can't pronounce his name. And now we can most commentators, but I can't. I'm not going to try. Go on, can you do it, mate? Can you do it?
Yeah, Dominic Szoboszlai.
Szoboszlai. Okay. Again, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. That one. I mean, he's just gone to RB Leipzig, but Ryan Kent. I mean, he's worth a mention. I know we can't get the stats of him, but I always saw Ryan Kent as a player that was very good to watch, very aesthetically pleasing in terms of watching him play. He could take on a player, good at everything in terms of in the game, but didn't necessarily have that end product. But now this season, I think he's really found it. He's produced a lot of clutch moments for Rangers. Yes, a lot of people argue that the SPL is a similar level to the Championship now and possibly lower than that.
Yeah.
But I think Ryan Kent's an interesting one. I think the fact that he's a right-footy player as well is a slight bonus. I mean, do you think Ryan Kent's a decent alternative to Jack Harrison?
Absolutely, mate. I think the fact that he's been linked with Leeds for so long and it's nothing that has been shied away from, Victor Orta hasn't said no. He's been asked about it a number of times, and Ryan Kent is a player that Victor Orta in particular likes very much. I think Bielsa would probably like him just as much. He's someone we've gone for before. If we've gone for him before, we've been looking at him for quite some time. So I don't imagine that scout report has been put in the bin. They will still be watching him. They will still be after him. And it's not like he's just been toddling along for a team like Dunfermline or Motherwell. He's at Rangers. They've won the league for the first time in 10 years. They were doing very, very well in the Europa League as well. So, he's been scoring in crucial games in the Europa League that got them through the group stage, through to the next round of the knockout stage. And obviously they went out last week. But I genuinely think that they're probably still looking at him, and wouldn't surprise me if they did go back in for him at all. But I do think we could be looking higher up these at the moment with what we want to aim for. But if we did end up with Ryan Kent, I don't think anybody would be crying about it.
I mean, the way he strikes the ball, astonishing, to be fair. Absolutely astonishing. Top player, but not one we're going to get, unfortunately. I think we can agree on that one, mate. So let's just look at the top 5. Let's look at your top 5. Okay, going way down. Explain to us, okay, in terms of Jorge being top, Kubo, in terms of in second place. I mean, talk us through the boards, mate.
Yeah, so like I said, it's not a case of I just immediately go, right, well, they tick the boxes stats-wise, let's go for them. I think it's a little bit more to do with, how much will they cost? Do we have to buy them? Could we get them on loan? Does it mean that we're going to have to pay a stupid amount of wages? And then obviously with the Brexit thing as well, is it realistically going to happen? Ezekiel Barco is someone that I really, really like. But like I was saying to you not long ago, I do think with the Brexit stuff, I just can't see that actually ticking.
Oh, Phil's gone there. Phil's gone. I think Phil's Wi-Fi's gone over there. But anyway, look, I'll talk you through my kind of thoughts on the players Phil's listed. I think Kubo is definitely a very interesting one in terms of he is a very very, very decent alternative to what we've got already. In terms of Rafinha, Costa, Harrison, etc., all pacey wingers, but Kubo's a little bit more technical in that kind of sense. Probably similar technical quality to Rafinha, but different kind of style. Drops deep for the ball, can play at the number 10. Very much gives us that kind of Samu Saïd option in terms of playing where maybe Tyler Roberts plays potentially. You could see Kubo play there. I mean, when Phil comes back, I will ask him about that. I mean, I could see Kubo having that potential to play there. He did play there for Mallorca quite a lot in the 10 role, but he's played more on the left-hand side for Getafe this season. But he's definitely a very interesting mention. Obviously, Domenico Berardi, again, in terms of on the being realistic, it's a difficult one. It's a very, very difficult one to say if he is realistic. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Leeds' power, if we're looking at people like Rodrigo de Paul, of course we can look at someone like Domenico Berardi. I mean, obviously, Kubo's mentioned there. They're all going to be ambitious kind of signings in that kind of sense, but it feels like that's the ambition the club wants. If the club wants to be in the top 6, top 7, these are the kind of calibre of signings we've got to be looking at in terms of the carry us to that next level. But I was going to bring Phil in.
Sorry about that.
No worries, mate. No worries at all. It happens to us all. It happens to me all the time on the Wi-Fi. I mean,
I don't know what happened. It just booted me out.
Booted you out. I mean, I don't know, mate. It's one of those things. But Kubo, could you potentially see him being able to play in the 10 role as well as on the left?
Yeah, of course. I think
does that make him even more of a selling point?
Yeah, versatility is something that definitely ticks the boxes for Bielsa and Orta. I think for the two that I don't know how much I missed while you were trying to cover up for me while I was gone. But
I wasn't trying to cover up at all. I was perfectly. I was comfortable, mate. I was comfortable. I held my own.
Well done. I would say the reason I put those two as my top two is because I genuinely think loan deals could be the way forward. We saw that towards the back end of our time in the Championship. Obviously it didn't go well with the ending with Ben White, but Helder Costa, we got him on loan. We signed him permanently. Jack Harrison, we've had him on loan 3 years. We're going to get him permanently. Players that are when Jack's 24 now, I think, when we first signed him, we were 21. Kubo and Jorge are both similar ages. If we could get them in on loan deals initially, I imagine getting a loan deal done for those two compared to a permanent deal would be extremely easy. Getting a permanent deal is not happening right now because they've got fantastic futures ahead of them. But if you can get them in, and obviously after working for Bielsa for a certain amount of time, there has to be a level of they would want to stay here. And I genuinely think those two would be fantastic. The other names on the list would also be fantastic, but I would love to see one of them too.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, are you happy to have that as your conclusion then on the wingers, on the left wingers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other names on there.
Those are top two on loan potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I would do. I think, don't get me wrong, if
it's more realistic in terms of a loan than Jorge is, because Jorge's playing regularly for AC Milan, but Kubo on loan would probably be my number one choice, Yeah. Because I think the thing with him, he's very different to what we've got already. Rafinha, Harrison, Costa, very much wingers that run in behind kind of thing and try and get on the end of things, create, and all these kind of bits and pieces. But Kubo will drop a bit deeper, can play the 10 role.
Yeah.
I think he's a nice alternative. That's my take on it. I was personally have Kubo top, but I think if Jorge can be done, then very, very, very good, very good. But before we go on to the left side of centre backs, which is what we're also going to cover tonight, I mean, this is one I'm going to ask you about, Phil. Obviously, Cooper will be 30 in August. Obviously, Pascal Struijk has been very, very impressive this season. Do you think it's important the club looks at the centre-back options, or are you happy, unless there's a big injury, a big suspension, or etc., are you happy with what we've got at the minute as centre-back?
I don't think it's necessarily about whether I'm happy, you're happy.
It's all about if you're happy, mate. You got the links to Orta. Orta's watching this right now. He's part of that 143 watching this. He's there somewhere.
It's about whether Bielsa's happy, and I would say at this moment in time, Marcelo Bielsa is very happy with what we have at centre back. It's not just when you think about it. Obviously, right centre backs, you've got Koch and Llorente. They're going to be there for a little while now.
Just one argument.
Yeah.
quite injury prone, the centre-backs we've got. I mean, other than Pascal Struijk, he's probably the only one who's not had an injury this season. Obviously, Robin Cox picked up a few. A big one at the moment. Llorente's been mostly injured since he's turned up, and Liam Cooper's injured pretty much once every 3 weeks. I mean, could that be part of the thinking, possibly?
Perhaps, but you've got to remember the more likely thing that we're going to see this summer is Berardi, unfortunately, I imagine will be going. Do we get someone in as Berardi level cover? Because I just think Cooper is going to be our captain again next season, whether people like that or not. He's still going to be here. When he's not going to play, Pascal Struijk is going to play. When Pascal Struijk's playing, I just cannot see Bielsa or Orta having any sort of appetite to bring someone in to stump the amount of minutes that he's going to be getting. Whether at this moment in time, there's an argument to be made that Struijk deserves those minutes over Liam Cooper already. This time next season, if Liam Cooper is injured or suspended and Pascal Struijk isn't covering that position while he's fit, there's a problem. He's going to be getting minutes. It's as simple as that.
I mean, I agree. I wouldn't not agree. I think I'm absolutely delighted with our options. I think that's the only argument I'd have, though, is the potential for injuries and that lot. But in terms of you can say that about any players, really. Most players have got some kind of injury record. But I'm personally happy with our centre-backs. But it's always worth a look. It's always worth a mention in terms of centre-back options. I think, obviously, as Chris says there, Charlie Cresswell will be closer.
Oliver Cleary as well. Leif Davis. Luke Ayling plays at centre back.
Yeah, Luke Ayling can play centre back.
It's not like we're going without. Yeah, we've got plenty of options there.
It's hard. Ollie Casey, forget about Ollie Casey. Leif Davis can go into centre back. There's quite a lot of different options there. But let's just have a little look through who you've picked out as a left-sided centre backs. We're just going to emphasise here, left-footed centre backs for Bielsa's team. Let's just have a little look at it, mate.
It's not an easy position to find cover for, in all honesty, especially if you are sticking to the Bielsa and Orta sort of.
Well, don't say that as we're filming, mate. We need people to stay on. We need people to stay on.
No, I've found
we won't go through every position, though. We do want to go through all 11 positions on the pitch. We said we would. Let's just have a look at our left-back options. So, I mean, first of all, mate, tell us through the top there, in terms of pass percentage, aerial percentage, what they mean specifically to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've compared everything to Liam Cooper. And obviously the numbers that you'll see on here and the amount of red in comparison just shows how fantastic Liam Cooper has been this season, which is why it's so hard to see him get the stick that he gets. There is only 2 people on this list that have a better pass completion percentage. You've also got the stick that Liam Cooper repeatedly gets beaten with, which is he's terrible in the air. There's only a few people on the list that have actually beaten him aerial percentage-wise. And then obviously we're looking, the same as we've looked with pretty much everybody in these lists, is they're pressing, do they press as well? And out of all of our centre-backs, he has the highest press percentage. And I think I went on a little bit of a rant on this on one of the post-match shows not recently about how much of his stats and how much he is so much better than all of our other centre-backs in comparison, and his tackles and interceptions per game is one of the highest in the league, which is why, people laugh at it, but the WhoScored.com team of the season, he's in it, and it's based on these kind of stats. It doesn't mean that he is the best centre-back in the league. Just
one, to play devil's advocate a little bit, does that necessarily mean, Paolo Maldini had the famous phrase that whenever I make a tackle, I've made a mistake. It's a fair point. It is a fair, say for example, it seems crazy to say this, but say, for example, I don't know, someone who's not on that list, say James Tarkowski at Burnley, for example.
Yeah.
Burnley have so little of the ball, naturally they're going to make more tackles and interceptions. Liam Cooper, you can't put that argument against, but does that necessarily tell the whole story, though, in terms of the quality of the defender, if they're having to make loads of tackles and interceptions?
No, of course not. Like I said before, stats aren't everything. Stats are a baseline measure of what we can see on a player's performance. But like I said, with Bielsa's system, you'd be surprised to find a centre-back that presses as much as our centre-backs do and has to put in the tackles as much as our centre-backs do, because it's the way that he insists they play. Someone like Sean Dyche is not going to ask James Tarkowski to run his arse off and man-mark Jose Perez. It's not going to happen. But unfortunately for Liam Cooper, he's going to have to get through a hell of a lot more work than most centre-backs, which is why it's important to have a look at other players and see if, pressing side, nobody really comes close apart from Halstenberg. But on the other sides, like the passing percentage and the aerial completion, like it's important to see if they can match any of the numbers that Cooper's getting in those respects. We don't expect everybody to be anywhere near him when nobody in the Premier League's anywhere near him on the e-stats.
Okay. But I mean, that's all I'd say in terms of it in those kind of stats. It is very interesting. But I mean, would you say he's our best centre back?
Statistically, yes, but like we've said, stats aren't everything. And by watching the game, I'd be surprised if anybody thinks that Liam Cooper's our best centre half. I think long term, you'd have to say Pascal Struijk is the future. You'd have to say in terms of passing, maybe Llorente is better. You'd have to say in terms of aerial ability, Struijk or Koch, there's an argument for either to be better. Pressing wise, you could make an argument for any, but I do think there's a lot of credit taken away from Liam Cooper that he actually deserves for the performances that he puts in. And you've got to forget, people do forget as well that he's the captain, he's a leader, and those leadership qualities aren't lost when he's on the pitch. They're something that when he's not there, I do think as much as Ayling and Calvin are there, they don't have the same leadership qualities as Liam Cooper. So I wouldn't be trying to push his bum out the door. And just to answer one of the questions on the comments, all of the passes are actually progression-wise, they're towards the other end of the pitch. So I can get that up for you if you want me to. But he actually has, I think it's the second best out of our centre-backs behind Llorente in terms of ball progression towards the opposition's goal on average per 90.
No, there we go. In terms of, I certainly think on the ball, Liam Cooper's massively improved in that regard.
Yeah.
I mean, one name that's on there that stands out straight away is John Brooks. Obviously, American John Brooks, part of the potential golden era of American players. Pulisic, etc., Reina, Dest. All these players that we're kind of talking about at this moment in time, and he's part of it. John Brooks at the back in that lot, and he's, again, not someone I've seen play a lot, but again, seems to be impressing at Wolfsburg. I mean, when I'm talking about the golden era, he's probably one of at the older end of it. He's probably kind of going to be the leader of this this future American great team. Well, what could be a great team? I mean, what would you make to John Brooks?
He is good, and I think it would sort of depend on what we're looking for. I think if I know people have said there's possible bids coming in for Pascal Struijk this summer. If that happens, we need to replace Pascal Struijk with someone that's younger. If Liam Cooper is to leave this summer, which is not happening, then I would say let's go for someone who's older and can step into the first team straight away, which is, it's the likes of Brooks, it's the likes of Hinteregger, Halstenberg, Chichos. And even if Leeds are looking at left-sided centre-backs this summer, which I find extremely unlikely unless there is a bid for Struijk that we cannot turn down, even then I would say we should be focusing on younger, someone around the same age as Evan Ndicka, Sven Botman. If people are looking at the name Botman and wondering where they've seen that over the last few days, the only player under 22 to have made more minutes in Europe's top 5 leagues than Ilhan Meslier this season. So that's why
Liverpool as well, very strongly.
Yeah, good player, but numbers-wise, I think there are people on this list that are more up our street of what we should be going for. But age-wise, I would like to see us get a player of that age rather than a player of John Brooks' age.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I look at centre-back partnerships. It can vary. It can vary from player to player. But for me, the best centre-back partnerships, you've got one who leads it, a bit like Liam Cooper does, stays in the zone as such, doesn't really go out to cover the left-back spots, the right-back spots, and cover any kind of gaps around the defence. I kind of see that as being the more progressive centre-back who maybe gets on the ball a little bit more, like a Llorente does, for example. Yeah. They cover the wide areas. You have one that stays in the zone, and you've got one that's a bit more willing to move out the zone and play a bit more proactive, press a little bit more. I mean, if we're saying those are the two different kind of centre-backs, what would you be looking at more personally for you in terms of what you think maybe the team would need if we were looking at centre-back?
I actually think, other than the obvious defensive stats, which are the pressing and the tackling, I think the most important thing for a Bielsa defender is to be able to play the ball and be able to pass the ball. We see different types of passes from our centre back. So with Cooper, obviously, we sort of associate him with the long diag. And then obviously with Llorente, we see sort of the ball between the lines, which is sort of usually from the right centre back position to the left centre mid. And that's kind of his go-to ball.
He goes diagonally, doesn't he? He does. But
yeah,
like
he's usually on the floor. It's not like a long diag like
Cooper. This guy, he goes. He's always looking this way. He's looking towards Luke Ayling there.
Yeah, but
he knows he's got Ayling there. He knows he's got Phillips directly in front of him.
Yeah. And
then probably Click or Dallas in the right kind of side, centre midfield spot. And he always just feints to that left all the time. And I'm amazed no one's kind of clocked it yet in terms of what he's going to do. But he's just very, very good on. I think definitely the best on the ball.
No, that's
about that.
But then obviously it's a case of
but definitely the best on the ball.
Yeah. But then obviously, you were saying a minute ago about having to have centre-back partnerships. I think the beautiful thing about Leeds United and our sort of system is that it's not just a partnership of centre-backs. We've spoken about it on some of the post-match shows recently. It's a diamond now. It's that partnership between the goalkeeper, the two centre-backs and Calvin Phillips. And we've seen a lot lately. It's not just one. It's different people every game, actually. I've seen it with Strike. I've seen it with Llorente. I've seen it with Cooper, where one of them will step out and Calvin will just drop in and cover their position. And it's something.
Understanding between them. It is. Yeah. Every piece of this Leeds team has got to work together. When Bamford presses, the four behind have got to join him.
Yeah.
Phillips has got to get his positioning right. The defence has got to get their line right. They can't push too high because they can get caught in behind. They can't push too low because then they leave too much space between them and Phillips, and the team's not compact. There's too much space between the lines between Phillips and Cooper. It's all got to work together in the Bielsa team. And that, for me, off the ball more than anything, is the big reason why the likes of Rafinha, Costa, even Nketiah last season, Rodrigo this season, haven't just walked straight into that Leeds team. They've needed at least 3 or 4 weeks just to get used to the whole system, that if he goes, you've got to go here. It's all got to work together in that kind of sense. And that's why sometimes, when obviously people say, get him straight in. Like Rodrigo de Paul. If we sign Rodrigo de Paul, it would not surprise me if it takes him a while to get into the team. Or anyone signed this summer. No matter how high caliber they are, it will still take them a while to get into this team. Especially if they're an attacking player, because they've got to be able to perfect that press. I think with the centre-backs, the beauty is with them, is if you've got someone like Koch or Ayling in there to lead the line in terms of how aggressive to be. I always think they are the best in terms of doing that. In terms of making sure the line's not too high, not too low, as I just said then. I think that makes it so. I think it makes it easier for the centre backs to adapt to this team. If you're good on the ball, you got basic quality on the ball. I think you can make it in this Bielsa team, no matter how average you are as a defender. Not that I'm saying any of our defenders are average. I just think that being good on the ball, as you said, is the number one priority. But do you see any of these players on here as being as good on the ball as what Llorente is?
Well, the numbers would suggest Halstenberg and Igor, but I think obviously one thing everybody knows we're extremely susceptible at set pieces. So I think you would have to balance that with looking for someone that can A, pass the ball, but B, do us a job aerially as well. So I think obviously Halstenberg is the most suitable player on this list for those reasons. But, he also has the benefit of being close on the pressing numbers as well. I know that's the way Leipzig play. I know people will say with the Jean-Kevin Augustin situation, it's going to be hard to do business with Leipzig, but you never know. It's a different deal. It's a different window. It's a different manager. You never know what could happen. But realistically, I would say we do need to be looking at players that not just do the job passing-wise. It could be a case of they look at Pascal Struijk and Diego Llorente and say, fine, we've got passing covered. Let's get someone that can head a ball properly. You never know what it is. And with referring back to what you were talking about a minute ago, there was a quote from Bielsa a few years ago where he said he expected about 8 weeks for someone to get used to his methods and adapt to his ways. And that's why you won't see anybody step straight into his teams ordinarily.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, it's the European Championships this summer as well. A lot of our if we're going for higher caliber players, they'll be probably in the latter stages of that tournament. So that's something that's going to affect us. The Copa America is after the Euros as well. So any South American-based players, that's going to be tough. Like Rodrigo de Paul, let's not forget, will be starring for Argentina. Chances are he'll go quite deep into the tournament. So that might affect things.
They like to do Messi over, don't they? So you never know.
Nah, not this year, mate. Not this year. I mean, you're on the right side of history as well, mate, because you back Messi over Ronaldo as well, don't you?
It's not even close, mate.
There we go, mate. There we go. Some channel called the Just Joe channel thinks Ronaldo's better than Messi, and I need backup on this. I need backup on this. It's I'm only messing. They're only messing, but yeah, I mean, they're not going to do him over again. Messi's going to finally win that international tournament, and convinced of it, at some point, he's going to do it. He's going to win an international tournament with Argentina. But
I'd like to see him win a World Cup.
Of course, Nicholas. Of course, it will hold up deals. Of course, it will. There's no way, especially with COVID going around, that you're just going to be able to visit a country's training ground and say, here's a contract and sign. It's definitely good. I mean, would you say that, Phil? It's going to definitely hold up things a little bit.
Yeah, and like we've said before as well, the Brexit thing as well.
Yeah.
Depending on who you're going for, you are really going to have trouble this summer doing transfer business in comparison to years gone by. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder, and loan deals might actually be a lot easier to do than a permanent deal. And the Euros, it depends if you're looking. Like, I don't think, no disrespect, Romain Perraud, obviously we've spoken about him at left back. I don't think he'll be going to the Euros, so I think that one might be a bit easier to do. But, like you said with DePaul, he will be at the Copa America most likely. And, we've got some of our own players that'll be there and, talking about possibly them leaving or anything happening with them. Any deal that's going to happen is going to be put on hold by the Euros if the player is there, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it is going to be potentially going to be a buyer's market if deals can't be done. And there's not much happening around the market. I think it could potentially be the prices are a little bit cheaper. I mean, could you see that maybe, mate? We saw it last.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of them because obviously we've seen the impact of the pandemic.
Not on every player, but as a general rule, it might be a bit lower. I mean, Rodrigo de Paul will still be crazy money if we get that one done. Yeah. I mean, I'm still not sure we will, but if we did, that's not going to be less than 40 mil for me.
Oh, I don't know. I'd like to think 35 maybe.
It's going to be big money, Rodrigo de Paul.
Imagine Leeds United spending 40 million quid on a player.
It would have to smash our transfer record if we're going to get him. But the club's interested. I don't know. I do think it would have to break a record for us.
Yeah. Well, 27 mil's the record, so we'll spend 28. Do a Wenger, offer him £1 more.
£1 more, just to get in the record books. But I mean, is there any other centre backs you want to look at before we go to the top 5, mate?
So I think everyone will probably have heard of the names like Benoit Badiashile and Evan and Dicker, hopefully, and obviously Sven Botman. They're the younger players that I would be looking at, just simply based on age and long-term impact that they could have if we sign them. But obviously, because they are young, they're not exactly strangers to other people's scouting reports. So they would cost a lot of money. But realistically, if Liam Cooper or especially Pascal Struijk is not going to be here next season, we would need someone of that quality. So it would need to be someone we spent that kind of money on.
I mean, this isn't my fault, Chris. I mean, I've never said it'll be a done deal. I've never said it'd be a done deal. I mean,
I have. It's a done deal.
There we go. It's Phil's fault. It's Phil's fault. Phil's fault.
I think it's done. I think it's happened.
I think it's happened.
Yeah, I'm not saying happening. I think it's happened. I think the talks have happened.
Okay. But okay, let's just have a look at your top 5. As we bring this one to a conclusion. Obviously, in terms of the centre backs, I think the big talk today was on the wingers because I think obviously centre backs we both know it's probably not going to happen in terms of centre back. It's probably going to be something more long term than something right now, right here and now. It's probably going to be more of a long term option. But on the top of your list is quite a long term player, not a long term player, more of a short term player. Marcel.
I've gone Halstenberg just. If it is a situation where this summer, here and now, we need to bring somebody in, then I would say that is the person we should go for right now. But obviously Chichos is a bit older, so that would be one of them. Which, if we have to do a deal this summer, can't get Halstenberg. He's a bit older, He's about the same age as Cooper. So if we had to get a deal done this summer, he would be my backup option. But long term, I would be looking at the other three I've got on that list, which are Badiashile, Shield, Kempfin, and Dicker. And then obviously I mentioned Botman as well. I would say the other three ahead of Botman for me, but they're the kind of players that I would like to see us looking at in the long term. Because there is talk of other clubs looking at Pascal Struijk, and you can see why. And if Struijk ever does leave, we would have to get someone in of a similar level with similar long-term prospects. And I think they would be the kind of players that I know Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, they're all looking at Badiashile. So it's not like we're the only team, but I would like to see us move for players like that and rival those kind of clubs in the transfer market.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't think, if I have said done deal on Rodrigo de Paul, I apologise, because I don't actually think that, to be fair. Maybe I was just saying that to get people on side. I don't know. Maybe I did it for that reason. But yeah, no, very interesting. Very, very interesting, mate. Obviously, it's going to be... can you see a centre-back coming, though? Yes or no? I'd have to agree. I would have to agree. But we do want to go through all the different positions. But I think... if we are going to sign a centre-back, I do think it'll be the younger one. I think it will be someone under 23.
Yeah.
It might even be, a case of going back, whose name escapes me now. His name escapes me. Croatian, who almost signed for us in last summer. Guardiola. His name completely escapes me. I mean, it could be something like that. Well, it could be something like the players you've listed there, mate.
Yeah, I think it has to be somebody young. Unless something...
It's not going to be Llorente, is it, for example?
No, I don't see it, because obviously we did bring in Llorente, but rumour has it that we bought in Llorente because Robin Koch had got injured on the first game of the season. We knew we were going to need him, and Llorente is somebody that Bielsa wanted when he was at Athletic Bilbao, when he was a hell of a lot younger. He's somebody that both Orta and Bielsa had their eyes on for a long time, so that doesn't surprise me. But no, we've said we don't need a centre back, but just on the off chance that, God forbid, a bid comes in of 50 million quid for Pascal Struijk and we can't turn it down, we need to have options. And this is why everybody's understanding is that Victor Orta has a list of 5 players for each position, and we're just trying to narrow down those choices and see if we can guess what's on his little black book.
No, absolutely. But I mean, probably. We'll probably reach a conclusion there for tonight, though, mate. But it's been a very interesting one again. Obviously, on the wingers side of things, I think we could potentially see another winger arrive at the club. But any other last thoughts before we hit the conclusion on this one, mate?
Well, there's just one question there from Robert Dunlop. He's asking, what 5 positions do you think we need to fill? We did sort of go through that on the last few shows, if you've watched. But obviously, the main ones are, we expect Rodrigo de Paul to come in as that, whether it's a 10, whether it's an 8, we don't actually know what that position as a number is anymore. But the right-sided attacking midfielder, basically. The left back is 100% happening. Alioski's gone, and we need, even if Alioski doesn't go, we need a better left back and a proper natural left back. Those 2 are the things that need to happen the most. I would say third thing that needs to happen is we need someone that can fill in for Calvin Phillips. If Adam Forshaw gets fit and miraculously works his way back into the first team before the end of the season, then maybe the need for that dies down a little, but I don't really think that's the case. I think Boubakary Samare would be perfect for that. And I would like to see, as a Leeds fan, and I think a lot of other people would too, Kiko Casilla be replaced by another backup goalkeeper. And then
Sanchez?
Yeah, Robert Sanchez or Alvaro Fernandez at Huesca, who, we told you to watch last week. And then...
He didn't have to be fair to him, nothing we can do about any of the goals.
Nothing you can do about Messi's or Griezmann's, to be fair. But
whoa, well, it's just like gone over. It's in before we can even move.
Yeah, and nobody else can score from there either, to be honest. On the other side of the pitch, Ronaldo don't get that there, even with his right foot. I'm sorry.
Don't say that too loudly, though, mate. Don't say that too loudly. But yeah, no, definitely fair. And obviously, 5th position, mate.
Well, like you said tonight, they love a good winger. They love a winger, so it could happen. But some people would argue we need another striker to give more competition for Bamford. Some people would argue that we need another centre back. I don't really think we need 5. I think with the amount of money that we get in I would like to see us, if we do have to spend 40 million quid to get a player like Rodrigo de Paul, we do that, and then we split the money 4 ways and get what we actually need. I think anything other than the 4 things that we've already mentioned, so backup goalkeeper, get rid of Kiko, proper left back, Alioski's leaving, Rodrigo de Paul, and CDM to back up Calvin Phillips. I think they're the 4 things we need, and I don't think you really need to stretch to a 5th, but if there is a 5th, wouldn't shock me if it's a winger.
I agree. I actually totally agree on that. I think it's going to be left back, goal. I think goalkeeper is very possible. I think goalkeeper is very possible.
Yeah.
There might be an agreement with Casilla. I hope there is. Left back, goalkeeper, CDM, centre mid, and possibly a winger. I think the strikers are okay. I think we're okay in that regard, but we will still look at strikers anyway on the latest show because we haven't looked at that position yet. Haaland, as has been mentioned there by George. I mean, maybe Haaland's cousin. That might be an option.
That's fine.
Too. So this might be worth it might just be worth, I think, 100 grand is being quoted as the cost on his cousin. So maybe take the risk. He's got the right genes, hasn't he? Let's be honest. And
I can give you an answer to that.
Played CDM, and that's a very good point. That off Duncan, I definitely agree with that. I think he has played there for a reason because potentially.
I don't.
Really?
No, I don't.
I'm not saying he's going to be a long-term CDM, but do you not think?
I don't think he played there for the reason that you think he played there. I think Robin Koch played there because the under-23s are smashing the life out of that league, and if he sits at centre-back, he's not going to get fit. He's not going to get minutes, and he's not going to get on the bloody ball.
But that good. We don't need centre-backs playing at centre-back.
No, and realistically, if he is playing there, I think it's a short-term thing until we do get someone in. I think it would be a case if Calvin gets a suspension before the end of the season and Robin Koch's fit and can play there. I honestly think, based on the passing stuff that we've been talking about tonight, I'd rather see Diego Llorente play there than Robin Koch.
No. That's really?
Yeah, I would. Passing-wise, I think Diego Llorente passes the ball better.
No, it's CDN to what it is at centre-back. So much less time.
I agree. But we're talking in a hypothetical scenario if Calvin's injured or suspended before the end of the season, and these are our only options. We've already tried Strike, and likelihood is if Strike's playing, he'll be the one that covers there anyway. But I think Koch played there for the under-23s, A, to get on the ball more, and B, to sort of give us a little look at what he could do there. But you can't say that playing there for the under-23s is like playing there against Man City. It's not.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it might be potentially a bit of a test. I still think it's a test, to be honest. But we'll discuss obviously in more detail on another show. That one, I think it's definitely worth another mention. As we come closer to the proper football returning. But look, plenty more content to come out next couple of days, guys. We're going to try and get a live stream out every single day. Not sure if we're going to do anything for England tomorrow as of yet. We may well do, but certainly Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we will have. So every day we're going to have something on for you guys. That's the promise at All East TV. To help you get through this lockdown. Been an absolutely fantastic show again with Phil. And mate, I guess we will leave it there. Big thanks to Phil. Any suggestions of players you want us to look at, guys, get them in the comments down below. Don't comment now because we won't see them. Comment them in the comments down below and we will have a look through them for you guys. I'm just going to leave it there, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Smash a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't done already. See you later, guys.